Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Knack. We've got live tournament action coming at you right now. It's going to be on MLG's Shattered Temple. Shaggin and Mjung going to be going into our semifinal match here for the evening. Only the one, and I do have Aegis on the line with me. Aegis, you're going to be my co-caster this evening, right?
Glad to be here.
Good stuff, sir. We're going to be watching a Protoss versus Terran. Strangely, there's still a Terran in this game, with so many Protoss in the brackets today. But Mjung, a phenomenal player. He's actually showing quite a bit of strength. He took out a Protoss player in that last round and did a phenomenal job of it. And of course, it did come down to, I think, some errors on our Protoss player's part. He did not A-move, and that will kill you.
Yeah, I mean, this game, particularly at the higher levels, comes down to not who's better, but who makes more mistakes. So even at this level, we're still dealing with that same principle.
Yeah, that's true. It just happens to be that the mistakes sometimes are terribly, terribly difficult to watch.
They are. It hurts.
When you're not A-moving in front of Marines and Marauders, that is no fun. But so far, so good. We do have standard openers from both so far. It looks like Shaggin not aware that he cannot spawn in this close rush position, so he's going to do a little bit of extra scouting there that is not necessary. But all in all, should be okay. And since it is a best of 3, those mistakes, they can kind of get brushed over there, I think, fairly easily.
Right, and particularly with these scouting mistakes, they're not terribly huge. They're just early time things, but time is always a resource, just like minerals and gas.
Yeah.
So we see, obviously, the early Rax wall-in coming up.
Yep, yeah, pretty standard play from Mjung. He just goes for his fairly early gas there, but no second gas quite yet, so we don't... maybe not a cloaked Banshee play at this point. If he is going to get it down, he's got to get it down before the 3-minute mark, otherwise it can tend to not be super effective. But Shaggin here with a pretty standard opener, however, I feel like he's a little late right now on this gateway. And I mean, this is about the time he needs to be tossing down his Cyber Core. Looks like he needs to have it down like right now.
Right, and as you can see, Mjung is already getting his orbital command at 16, which is, again, very standard, but he should already... But our Protoss should already have his... As he does have his Cybernetics Core down already.
Yeah, he does. Just barely got it down, but, I mean, all in all, I mean, his build, it appears to just be slightly behind where it should be at this point. And as long as he can stay on top of it from here, he should be okay moving forward. But always a topic of concern for Protoss. That's the one thing about Protoss. They cannot skip a beat. And another thing I want to mention, he's not using his Chrono Boost. And so there he goes. He's just barely starting to use it. But he was at full energy there almost the entire time. And you, as Protoss, you cannot be wasting that energy on your Nexus. It's got to be utilized.
Right, and Reactor just going down now. Interesting that he's going for a Reactor and not the normal Tech Lab to get the early upgrades of Combat Shield, STEM, and Concussive Shells. Yeah. So we could be seeing heavy Marine play out of Mjung.
Well, it looks like he's going to tech straight to Banshees here at this point. You notice that he did grab his second gas, and he's now tossing down his factory. I don't believe he's going to go for tanks or anything at this point. Probably not going to even get a Hellion out. In fact, we'll probably see him just use his factory for scouting.
Right.
And we'll see it. We should see a starport. He is grabbing that second barracks, so this appears to be a one-base play from him. It should include Banshees at this point. And actually, in that last game, he did do a very similar play to this, and he did get a Raven out as well, but didn't get Cloak, which struck me as a little strange, but it ended up working okay for him.
That is okay. So another scouting Hellion, possibly Proxy, or a scouting SCV, I say. Sorry. Possibly a Proxy, just checking for what appears to be any expansions on the way. And Marauder, Marine, SCV, and a Starport, as you mentioned, on the way for Mjung.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, this is a nice build order from Mjung. It appears that he's practiced this very well, and so I mean, this is the kind of guy who's picked a build, says I'm going to execute this sucker extremely well, so that I don't have to think about builds in my mind until my mechanics are where they need to be. And so I mean, I think he's kind of in a training type mode here, and I like to see players like this that just pick a build, make it happen, and and start working on their mechanics.
Right, and a very good scan going down for Mjung. He saw all 3 warp gates and the Robo, which
nice.
I mean, he knows.
Yeah, that's good. And we do have our first observer going to be out on the field here momentarily, but nothing else from that robo quite yet. And here comes your scouting factory.
Quite. Just a lot going on for, at least macro-wise, for Mjung. I mean, he's getting, as you can see, a couple bunkers, obviously SCVs and supply depots,
yeah, he got
and
himself supply
stim.
blocked. Yeah, he is getting stim, but he got himself supply blocked there. I mean, he's got to stay on top of those, of his supply there, and he's just barely unsupply blocked here, and he's about to be supply blocked again. So
yeah.
So he needs to really. There he goes. He's building another supply depot. He should be okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's one thing that really separates, I think, our bronze silver players from our gold platinum. Is that once you start getting up into gold and platinum, you tend to not get yourself supply blocked. You tend to be a lot better at warping in units or queuing up units, or whichever race you play. Obviously, there's a different way to look at it, but
right.
Your inject cycles for Zerg, they just stay on top of those. They stay on top of your warp in cycles as Protoss, and they stay on top of queuing up units as Terran. And so, I mean, pretty good stuff, though, from these guys. You can see that really when they're pretty close to on top of it at this point.
Right. An early Raven coming out looking for DTs, but his scouting factory might see that there is no Dark Shrine.
Well, he doesn't even have... Well, he scouted the Robo, so he's not going to expect that at this point.
Right. So, and Banshee's on the way, as you said.
Yeah. So he's just using that. I think if he does... I don't think he should get the Raven, to be honest. He should go for just the Banshees, unless he's going to grab Cloak. If he's going to grab Cloak, then getting a Raven out is super smart, because then he can snipe the observers, which will make those cloaked Banshees that much more effective. But he's not going for Cloak here, which just makes me think that he might as well toss the Raven out the door. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, right. And at this point, at least as a Terran, the Raven feels more like a mid to late game. I mean, we're talking 15 minutes type unit, not a 10-minute unit as we're seeing, or a 8-minute when he got it.
Well, I mean, unless he's going for Cloak Banshees.
Right, as you already mentioned.
Yeah.
Which I believe you've even said he tends not to do that play.
Right. Well, I mean, he's not getting Cloak yet, and he's got 2 Banshees out on the field. Well, 1, but a second on the way, and so yeah, I mean, no Cloak. So at this point, I think there's really no reason for the Raven, but he's going to be cruising out here. He's got a very, very substantial force. That's a lot of Marauders and even more Marines, and so the burden is now going to be on Shaggin here. He's got to defend this very, very well. Notice that he's mixing a couple probes into his army. That's kind of interesting. But
yeah,
got 2 probes
in fact,
his army.
pulling a significant amount of harvesters, still obviously very well done. And that observer, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how much he saw, but he appeared to be right.
He's watching his mini map. It doesn't appear that he was. If he was, I think he would have pulled his stalkers forward. His stalkers are still in the back of his base. He did, however, cancel his nexus there, so it looks like he is relatively aware, but he is going to be in a little bit of trouble here. I like that he's kiting away from this point defense drone. He wants to eliminate that point defense drone's usefulness.
Right. And we see this is very well done stim, but Shaggin's holding it off very well. I mean, he's going to need a little something to pull it off finally, but I'm thinking this is going to have to go to Mjung here.
Yeah, that appears to be something. GG. That is way too many Marauders to deal with.
There's the GG.
GG it is. Game 2 will be headed our way here momentarily. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. Aegis, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, it has.
We'll definitely be talking to you soon. So thanks so much for coming out and casting with us, and we will catch you later.
Okay.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Knack. We do have live tournament action coming at you. It is Game 2 between Mjung and Shaggin. Mjung, our Terran player, showing a lot of strength. And he is going to be red Terran up here in the top left-hand corner. And in the top right, it is Shaggin. He is our green Protoss. I do want to mention real quick that the Hoyification is out on the live stream. He says, if Knack makes fun of me in the finals, I'm going to cry. Hoyification, I will not make fun of you. I may give strong advice, but I won't make fun of you. I promise. I promise. I'm not bad-mannered. But definitely will not make fun of you. And I will go... I will definitely be as wary of your feelings as possible. Does that sound fair? Does that sound okay? I want to give you good advice if possible, though. I mean, when these guys are playing, and if they make a mistake like the non-A moves and things like that, then yeah, I mean, you got to say something. Otherwise, they tend to not get better. And it's little things like that that can really help players at these lower levels make it up into the higher leagues. So Shaggin here going to be starting with what appears to be an early scout. He is checking this base here that does not spawn. Got to be aware of that. Shaggin not currently aware that you cannot spawn there. Yeah, that's okay. All in all, he should be just fine. He's going to go for a standard opener. His gateway going down in good time. Actually, he got it down in the right time this time, it looks like. So good job there from Shaggin. And back here at Mjung's base, he does have his barracks going down as well. He's going to be walling off here. Does have his gas going down as well. Looks to be a good standard opener from him. Now, I'll be honest. I don't expect Mjung to do a different build this time. I do really expect him to do the same thing. I think that he practices this build on purpose. And over and over again, he's trying to get himself into a mode where he doesn't have to think about build order. And then later on in his career type thing that he's going to try and transition into being able to execute just about any build in that form or fashion, if you will, without having to skip a beat. Boom, 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 crisp timings, and then work on his mechanics the rest of the time where, micro comes into play and good scanning, good scouting, etc., etc. So, I mean, Mjung actually showing a lot of promise to be a potential great player here, and I think that he's approaching it the correct way as well, and it's really interesting to see somebody doing that. Now, Cybercore for Shaggin, though, Shaggin's not a bad player either, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying Mjung is really, really focusing on that one build. We'll see what Shaggin's going to do here. I don't expect much different from him either. Actually, to be honest, I do expect him to go with 3-gate robo, which, again, it's really the same thing. I mean, Shaggin may be trying to execute that build as best that he possibly can and work on those mechanics. And we'll see if he's going to do that. This time he is grabbing his second gas here fairly early. Get it down just before the 4-minute mark. Not too bad. I would like to see him go for his robotics a little bit sooner than he is. He's been tending to grab his gateways first. 3 gateways and then the robo. I usually like to see people go 1 gateway, then robo, then 2 more gates. That tends to be a little bit more effective. Also, another thing is to be spending those chronos non-stop. You don't want to be floating this much energy. He's got 55 energy right now. I mean, unless he's going to... See, and he's not even putting down his robo right now, so he needs to be chrono boosting the heck out of his Cybercore. So there is the tip for the day for Shaggin. Chrono, chrono, chrono. Do not float energy. Unless you're floating it for a specific purpose, like you're waiting for your robotics to complete or something like that. But he doesn't even have a robo on the way. So that is a good sign to go ahead and give it the old chrono boost. Back here at Mjung's base, he does have his starport going down. This is a typical... Actually, it is different than what he's done before, so he did switch it up a little bit. He's not grabbing his second barracks. Did grab a tech lab here, and he's going to go in for tanks. So he is picking a different build here. Interesting. So I must have misjudged this young man just a little bit. He does have more than the one build in his repertoire here. Bunker going to be going down for him as well, so he looks to be executing a 1-1-1, but giving siege tanks and siege tech here as well is kind of an interesting play. Not something you often see, actually, especially on this map where, well, I mean, he's got some abuses defensively, but it's difficult to take your tanks offensive against a Protoss on this map sometimes. So we'll see how that's going to go for him, but he does have 1 tank out on the field. His siege tech is about to be complete. His second tank on the way. Tech Lab out on his starport. No upgrades, nothing from the starport quite yet, but I do assume that we're going to see Banshees in the mix here. And he's also working on a good bunch of Marines. Currently not floating any minerals. This is another well-planned out build that he's got here in his repertoire. Good stuff. Shaggin in the meantime going to be warping in some more units. He's going to be chrono boosting out an Observer. Going Observer first, I guess. It's okay. It's not a bad idea, but... it's maybe not the most efficient. A lot of the times in First Terran, you just need good scouting with your map control. You should be able to maintain map control versus Terran. And as long as you can keep a good idea of when they're going to be pushing out of their base, then you need to be working on your Immortals right away for a 3-gate robo. Now he's grabbing his robotics bay, so that is kind of interesting to say the least. 1 base... Robotics bay play can be problematic. Ooh, Mjung getting the snipe on that observer there. He did get his Raven out here, and is now going to be working on his Banshee. Still no cloak upgrade for this guy, though. Still no cloak upgrade. Does have 3 tanks out on the field and a good bunch of Marines. About to have some good old-fashioned Banshees. Actually, they're not really that old-fashioned, are they? Not really old-fashioned, but back here at Shaggin's base, he seems to have a fairly decent unit composition. He's going to have to be careful. Needs to, well, he scouted this play, so he should know what's headed his way. He may not be aware of the tanks at this point, but he will know that he is going to have to deal with some Banshees. And what is the best counter, ladies and gentlemen, out there in the live stream? What is the best counter to a 1-1-1 build? Does anybody know? Check on your list of counters. If anybody knows, I would sure love to hear. You can even take a guess, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I would like to hear what you guys think it is, and go check on the list of counters. It's actually a good spot for people to start doing some research. Now, he does have this forge out as well. See, this is so much tech. This is so much tech off of one base that it really spreads him very, very thin. And quite frankly, it may be spreading him too thin for against a 1-1-1, which is going to be headed his way right here, right now. There are 4 tanks in here. They do have siege. Look at all these Marines. We've got double Banshees. Got a good old-fashioned Raven. The Raven going to be using, I assume, the point defense drone. Point defense drone going to be super effective here in this fight. The Colossus is going to be a nice little play here, but Shaggin going to have to cancel this Nexus. Absolutely going to have to cancel this Nexus. Tank sieging up. Looks like the Raven gaining some sight there. This army is going to get absolutely obliterated. Absolutely obliterated. Mjung probably going to be chalking this one up as a win and moving into the finals. This push, so very difficult to deal with. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. Shaggin already asking if he scouted that instead of GGing. Scout what? Yeah, it's 1-1-1. It's always blind. Yeah. Yeah, it is blind. That's what they do. It's it's the burden is on you. As Protoss, the burden is on you to find out what your opponent's doing. If you do suspect a 1-1-1, which he should have because he saw the Raven, if you do suspect that, then you are supposed to find your counter. Now, we'll talk about what the counter is to that here in just a moment. But thanks, guys. That is game. Mjung will be moving into the finals here momentarily, so don't alt-tab, always alt-Starcraft. We'll see you guys then.